The night was calm over the Pacific Ocean. The stars were bright, and the sea was quiet, except for the soft rhythm of the waves. Then, without warning, the sky tore open. A streak of white light cut across the darkness, followed by another, then another, each one glowing brighter than the last. Fishermen on small boats stopped what they were doing. They pointed toward the heavens, eyes wide. It looked like a meteor shower, but these meteors were moving too slow and too controlled. Within minutes, the streaks became fireballs. The air shimmered with heat as one blazed downward and disappeared behind the horizon. A few seconds later, a dull explosion echoed across the water. The sea rose, and waves slapped against the sides of the fishing boats. One man shouted that it was a plane crash. Another said it was a satellite. No one could tell. Far from shore, in a quiet corner of the ocean, a strange metal object floated half buried in steam and foam. It was not a plane. It was not any ship built by human hands. The surface was smooth and curved, glowing faintly blue under the moonlight. Symbols, unlike any human language, moved slowly across its shell, like living light. The first to find it was the crew of a small fishing vessel called Hikari Dawn. Captain Kenji Watanabe had been fishing these waters for 30 years. He had seen storms, whales, even fallen satellites, but nothing like this. As his crew approached, their radios filled with static. The compass needle spun wildly. The engine sputtered, then went dead. "Cut the power," Kenji ordered. The crew pulled their nets and drifted closer. The metal object hissed and cracked, releasing a sharp smell of ozone. Suddenly, a part of the hull opened, slowly, carefully, like an eye trying to open after a long sleep. Kenji raised his flashlight. Inside, he saw movement. Something or someone was inside. A thin hand, pale and trembling, reached out. It wasn't human. The fingers were long and almost transparent, glowing faintly from within. Kenji felt his breath catch in his throat. The hand waved weakly, as if asking for help. "Pull it out," he shouted. Two crew members grabbed ropes and leaned over the side. Together, they pulled the figure onto the deck. It was small, no taller than a child, but fragile, with smooth, glass-like skin and large eyes that reflected the stars. It made no sound, only a faint vibration like a low hum. Then another figure appeared inside the open pod, then another. 3 in total. One looked badly injured, dark cracks spreading through its crystal-like body. The crew hesitated. Fear battled against instinct. These were not humans, not animals, not anything they had ever seen. But the way they trembled, the way they reached for one another, it was the same kind of fear all living things shared. Kenji's voice was steady when he said, "We helped them. They wrapped the strange beings in blankets." The injured one pulsed weakly, light fading in its body. Kenji tried to give it water, but it could not drink. Instead, it touched the metal cup with its hand. The cup glowed, then cooled instantly. The creature looked at Kenji with eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. A moment later, a low, deep sound rolled across the sea. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It came from the sky, a heavy, pulsing vibration that made the air feel thick. The crew froze. Far above, a dark shape moved among the stars. "What is that?" one man whispered. The shape lingered for a moment, like a shadow passing over the moon. Then it vanished. No lights, no trail, nothing. The sea returned to silence. Back on deck, one of the glowing beings made a sound for the first time. It was soft, like wind through glass. Then, to the crew's shock, a voice, flat and metallic, came from the ship's old radio. "Help! Please hide us!" Kenji stared at the radio, then at the beings. "Who are you?" he asked. The radio crackled again. "We run. They follow." "Who follows you?" Static filled the air. Then, one word. "Purge." The word meant nothing to the crew, but the way the creatures reacted told a story without needing translation. They pressed closer together, glowing brighter for a moment, then dimming again, like fireflies trying to hide their light. Kenji didn't know what to do. He wanted to call the Coast Guard, but what would he say? That he'd found 3 glowing aliens in a crashed ship? No one would believe him. The creatures looked up at him again. The smallest one reached out its hand. Kenji hesitated for only a moment before taking it. The surface of its skin was smooth and cool, like polished glass. But beneath it, he could feel a faint heartbeat. "All right," he said quietly. "You're safe here." Hours later, as dawn painted the horizon, the Hikari Dawn returned to port. The sea was calm again, but the world had changed. Satellite networks reported strange interference. The military detected unexplained energy bursts in the upper atmosphere, and far beyond Earth something was moving. Something vast, cold, and patient. The refugees had landed by accident, but now humanity had been noticed, and somewhere, beyond the stars, the hunters were already turning their gaze toward the little blue planet that had dared to take them in. 3 days after the strange crash in the Pacific, the world began to whisper. At first, the story was dismissed as rumor, a fishing crew claiming to have rescued creatures made of glass. But then, the military sealed off a large stretch of ocean near Japan, declaring it a hazardous recovery zone. Satellite photos leaked online. People saw it clearly. A massive metallic pod half-submerged, glowing with soft blue light. The internet went wild. Government said nothing. Reporters demanded answers. And deep below a naval facility in Tokyo Bay, Captain Kenji Watanabe sat under bright interrogation lights, retelling the same story for the 5th time. "Yes," he said calmly. "They were alive. 3 of them. They asked for help." The officers watching him exchanged glances. No one laughed. In a secure chamber beneath the base, scientists and linguists gathered around a sealed containment field. Inside stood the survivors, the last 3 of their kind from the ship. They had changed since the rescue. The smallest one now stood tall enough to look a person in the eyes. The glowing cracks on the wounded one had faded, sealed by a process no one understood. Their forms shimmered faintly between solid and translucent, as if light itself struggled to decide what they were. They called themselves the Varen. They spoke through a translator device taken from their ship, a floating crystal sphere that emitted calm, artificial speech. "We come from the rim of the Orion Arm," the translator said. "We fled the purge fleets. They erase what they cannot control." The scientists listened in silence. The creatures were gentle, careful with their words, and they seemed terrified, not of humans, but of being found. When asked why they came to Earth, the eldest of them simply said, "We did not mean to. The jump drive failed. The stars moved wrong." Then, after a long pause, it looked directly at the glass window where the observers stood. "Please," it said, "hide us." In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and Geneva, leaders argued over what to do. Some wanted to hand the aliens over to the Galactic Authority, the governing body of the known Milky Way. Others wanted to dissect their technology. But one fact silenced the room. The Varen ship had been transmitting a distress signal for nearly 24 hours before it was shut down. Someone, something out there already knew they had crashed. The debate ended that same night when the first transmission arrived from deep space. A signal filled every major observatory on Earth. A repeating pattern of sound, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then a voice, mechanical and slow, spoke in every known human language. "Return the fugitives. Failure to comply will result in sterilization." The word sterilization echoed across news broadcasts, radio stations, and the internet. Humanity didn't know what it meant until the Varen explained. "It means they will burn your oceans," one of them said quietly. "They will erase this world to stop the spread of what they call impurity." The room went cold, but something unexpected happened next. Instead of panic, there was defiance. The United Nations called an emergency session. After 48 hours of argument, the vote was announced to the public. For the first time in history, all major powers agreed on one thing. Earth would not hand the refugees over. A new initiative was formed under the UN Security Council, Project Aegis. Its mission, protect the Varen and conceal their existence from the galaxy. The announcement shocked the world. Crowds filled the streets, some protesting, others cheering. Priests called the Varen angels. Conspiracy theorists called them invaders. But among soldiers and scientists, something different was taking shape. determination, humanity, once divided by borders and politics, now shared a common purpose. In the weeks that followed, Aegis agents spread across the globe. The Varan ship was moved to a hidden facility deep beneath Antarctica, its power core still humming faintly, as if dreaming. Teams of engineers studied the wreck carefully, learning faster than anyone expected. The technology was far beyond Earth's level, yet strangely intuitive, almost designed to be understood. The Varan themselves cooperated eagerly. They were not warriors. They were builders, artists, engineers. One of them, named Lure, showed scientists how to purify air using nanofibers grown from light. Another, Taran, demonstrated a tool that could heal wounds instantly by reprogramming cells. They refused, however, to share anything that could be used to kill. "Weapons are what destroyed our worlds," Lure said. "We will not help you repeat that mistake." Still, even their peaceful knowledge was enough to change everything. Within months, Earth's energy crisis was solved. Pollution dropped. For the first time, the planet itself began to heal, and yet the Varan lived in fear. Every few nights, they would stop whatever they were doing, eyes glowing with faint blue light, and whisper among themselves. When asked what was wrong, they always gave the same answer. "The purge fleets are looking. We can feel them." One night, deep in the Antarctic base, an alarm echoed through the tunnels. Scientists rushed to control panels, and technicians shouted as monitors flickered with alien symbols. An energy pulse, massive, far beyond anything human-made, had swept through the solar system. It wasn't a weapon. It was a scan. The Varan dropped to their knees, trembling. "They found the trail," Taran whispered. "They are coming." The human commander of Aegis, General Miriam Holt, clenched her jaw. She looked at the glowing beings and said, "Then we'll do what you couldn't. We'll make them lose it." Lurai looked up, confused. "How?" Holt smiled faintly. "By making Earth invisible." That night, as the auroras burned green over the frozen sky, humanity began to rewrite the rules of space. The Varan's stealth technology was merged with human ingenuity, turning satellites into ghost machines, radar into silence, and light itself into camouflage. From the stars, Earth began to fade, like a candle behind glass. And for the first time, the Varan felt something they hadn't felt in years: hope. Months passed since the sky had gone silent. The great scanning pulse that had shaken the solar system never returned, but humanity could feel invisible eyes watching from the dark. Under the codename Project Aegis, the world had changed. For the first time, the human race had one heartbeat. Soldiers, engineers, farmers, and children all worked toward one shared goal: to keep Earth hidden and protect the strange guests who had trusted them. The Varan lived quietly in an underground city beneath Antarctica. The facility wasn't built for war, it was built for hope. There were gardens under ice domes powered by Varan light. Artificial suns glowed in the tunnels. The humans who worked there didn't see them as aliens anymore. They saw them as neighbors. General Miriam Holt, commander of Aegis, often walked the halls late at night. She would pass the control rooms filled with scientists whispering over holographic maps of the solar system. She'd glance into the observation chambers where the Varan worked, moving gracefully through air filled with glowing dust, shaping it with gestures into machines that looked like art. To Miriam, they looked like something out of myth, fragile but unbreakable. Every time she met their eyes, she remembered the vote that had changed history. The day humanity decided to shield, not surrender. The world outside was different too. Energy flowed from the new light engines the Varan had designed, small reactors that created power from sunlight and air. Cities grew cleaner. Seas began to heal, and with that healing came something no one expected: unity. Borders softened. Armies worked together. Scientists who once competed began sharing data openly. Humanity had become what it always claimed it wanted to be: a species united under one purpose. Still, the fear of discovery lingered like a shadow. Every launch into orbit was covered in secrecy. Every new satellite was built not to see, but to hide. Humanity's greatest weapon had become its silence. One evening, As an icy storm raged above the Antarctic base, Miriam found herself in the central lab with Luray, the Varan scientist she trusted most. Luray was standing before a glowing sphere, adjusting streams of light that seemed to hum like gentle music. "What are you building?" Miriam asked. Luray didn't look up. "A veil," they said softly. "Your planet is bright. Too bright. The Purge will find it if we do not dim its light." Miriam folded her arms. "A shield, then." Luray shook their head. "No, shields stop weapons. This stops attention. It bends reality around your world, makes Earth's energy blend with the background of the galaxy. To others, it will look like empty space." Miriam stared at the shimmering globe. "You think it'll work?" Luray finally looked up. Their translucent face reflected the swirling light. "It worked once," they whispered. "For a time." Weeks later, the test began. Every power grid on the planet went through silent calibration. Satellites were repositioned. The moon's dark side became home to hidden generators. At a single coordinated moment, Earth's magnetic field was infused with Varan resonance, the hum of alien science merging with human engineering. People around the world felt it, a brief stillness, like the planet had taken one deep breath. From space, something impossible happened. Earth faded. Astronomers aboard the International Orbital Observatory watched in awe as their sensors stopped detecting the planet below. The blue marble that had hung in space since humanity first looked upward was gone. But on the ground, everything was still. People went to work. Children laughed. Birds flew. Earth had not vanished. It had simply stepped out of sight. The news never reached the public. Only the scientists, leaders, and Aegis personnel knew what had been done. Humanity was now the hidden world, the one place in the galaxy that refused to bow. The Varan called it the Cloak of Quiet. But among humans, a different name spread: the Promise. It wasn't just about stealth. It was about faith that a world of fragile beings could protect others who were stronger, wiser, and older than they were. One evening, during a rare celebration in the base's garden dome, Miriam raised a glass of synthetic wine with her team and their Varan allies. "To the Promise," she said. Luray tilted their head. "You keep making that sound, Promise. What does it mean to you?" Miriam smiled. "It means a word you don't break, not even when it hurts." Especially then, the Varan exchanged glances. "Humans are strange," Taran said. "Your species faces death, yet you smile." Miriam laughed softly. "Because if we stop smiling, we start giving up. And that's not what we do here." Later that night, as the others slept, Luray stood alone in the observatory dome, gazing up at the stars through layers of shielding glass. They could no longer feel their people among those lights. Their world was gone, burned away by the Purge fleets long ago. But now, there was something different in their chest, a feeling they didn't have a word for. Hope, perhaps. Or maybe something deeper. They whispered softly in their own tongue, a word that hadn't been spoken in generations. Home. Far above the clouds, deep in the void, unseen eyes searched for a world that no longer existed. But the void gave them nothing. The hunters moved on, and Earth, small, hidden, defiant, kept breathing in peace. For now. For now. For almost 2 years, Earth stayed quiet. The world thrived in secret. Cities glowed cleaner. Oceans breathed again. Wars faded into history lessons. Humanity, hidden beneath its cloak of silence, had never been so alive. But peace never lasts forever. It began with a flicker, so faint most systems ignored it. A single telescope in Chile detected a disturbance near the edge of the solar system, a patch of stars that seemed to blink out for a fraction of a second. Then another observatory in Alaska saw the same thing, followed by one in India. Stars did not blink. Something had moved between them. Inside the Aegis base beneath Antarctica, alarms rang softly, not blaring, not panicked, but steady. A sound that meant something unknown had entered human space. General Miriam Holt stood before the main display, watching a cluster of red dots appear beyond Neptune's orbit. How long until they reach the inner system? She asked. 18 days, maybe less, a technician replied. No radio, no light emissions, no transponder. They're dark? Miriam turned to Luray, who stood at her side, hands clasped tightly. What are we looking at? Luray's glowing eyes dimmed. They found the scent, they whispered. It's them! The purge fleets. Across the room, people froze. The name carried weight now, spoken only in whispers for years. Tahran, the eldest of the three Varen, moved forward slowly. Their scanners pierce through dust and radiation, he said. They look for traces of Varen energy. They will know the trail leads here, Miriam nodded grimly. And our cloak? Still strong, Luray said. But if they get close enough, they might notice what isn't there. The next few days blurred into sleepless hours. All over the planet, Aegis bases prepared contingency plans. The moon's hidden outposts were shut down, Mars probes rerouted, even the space station dismantled to erase evidence of advanced activity. Humanity had to look simple again. Primitive, harmless. It was the greatest act of collective deception in history. But not everyone agreed. At a secret meeting in Geneva, certain world leaders demanded answers. We can't hide forever, one argued. If they find us, they'll destroy us anyway. Shouldn't we prepare a defense? General Holt was called in. She stood before them, cold-eyed and calm. We're already defending ourselves, she said. But not with missiles. Not with fire. We'll fight with silence. An older leader slammed his fist on the table. You think silence will stop gods? Miriam looked around the room. They're not gods, she said. They're cowards who burn what they fear. And I'm done fearing them. 2 weeks later, the darkness arrived. Every major telescope went blind. Sensors near Jupiter detected strange gravity fluctuations. The space between planets seemed to bend and twist like heat waves. Then came the sound. It wasn't really sound, not in space, but the instruments translated it into a deep, rolling hum. It grew louder, stronger, until even Aegis control rooms on Earth could feel it through their bones. The Varen huddled together, trembling. That is the voice of the purge, Tahran whispered. They call it the weave. It sings to the void before it destroys. Miriam stared at the monitors. What are they doing? They're scanning, Luray said. Layer by layer, searching for something alive. All across Earth, lights dimmed as the planetary cloak strained to hide every spark of energy. For 3 days, the sky glowed faintly red with auroras that shouldn't have existed. People looked up, unaware of the danger just beyond their blue horizon. On the 4th day, one of the satellites near the moon exploded silently. It was enough. A tiny ripple in the dark. The purge fleet turned. They saw that, Miriam muttered. A cluster of enormous ships, blacker than shadow, began to move toward Earth's orbit. Their hulls shimmered like oil, their shapes shifting as if made of smoke. They weren't ships in the human sense. They were alive, part machine, part creature, pulsing with a rhythm that matched no known technology. The purge had arrived. Can we stop them? Miriam asked quietly. Luray shook their head. We can't fight them, but maybe we can mislead them. How? By giving them what they expect. Hours later, the plan was in motion, using fragments of the crashed Varen ship. The scientists built a decoy signal, a ghost world far from Earth near the asteroid belt. It broadcasted faint energy patterns mimicking the Varen's presence. As the purge fleet approached, the false trail flared bright. For long, painful minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the great dark shapes turned away. They're taking the bait, whispered a technician. They're heading for the belt. Miriam exhaled for the first time in hours. But as the purge ships faded into the distance, one smaller craft remained behind. It drifted silently above the atmosphere, invisible to radar. Through telescopic lenses, it looked like an obsidian seed. It didn't scan or move, it simply watched. What is that? Miriam asked. Luray's voice trembled. A sentinel. They always leave one to listen. For how long? Forever. That night, the world below slept peacefully, unaware that something vast and cruel was listening from the dark. General Holt stood in the command room, watching the skies. We fooled them once, she said softly. But next time they'll come harder. Beside her, Luray folded their glowing hands. They will never understand, they said. They think mercy is weakness. They don't know what it makes humans do. Miriam smiled faintly. Then they're in for a surprise. Outside, the auroras faded, and Earth's hidden heart kept beating, quiet, defiant, alive. The purge might rule the stars, but humanity had already mastered something far rarer, the courage to protect instead of conquer. Courage to protect instead of conquer. Months passed after the purge fleet left the solar system, or so humanity hoped. The decoy signal near the asteroid belt had fooled the main fleet, but the sentinel that stayed behind, the silent black seed, remained in orbit, unmoving, watching. It drifted above Earth like a cold, unblinking eye. No one on the surface knew it was there. People went back to living, laughing, dreaming. But deep beneath Antarctica, in the secret halls of Aegis Command, no one slept. The sentinel hadn't sent any signals yet. It just waited, watching, learning, and that frightened the humans more than an attack ever could. General Miriam Holt stood before the observation screen, arms folded tight. Behind her, engineers and soldiers worked in whispers. The hum of machines filled the air, soft and constant like a heartbeat underground. "They're not leaving," she said. Luray stood beside her, hands clasped in front of them. Their glowing eyes dimmed. "No," they said quietly. "It's studying you." "Studying us?" Miriam turned sharply. "For what?" Luray hesitated. "For weakness." Over the following weeks, strange phenomena began. Satellites malfunctioned, not from human error but interference from above. Signals dropped. Entire networks blinked out and came back, slightly altered. "They're mapping us," said a technician. "Not just our planet, our data, our behavior, our patterns." The Varan called it soul tracing, a purge method used to understand how a civilization thinks before destroying it. When the first black drones appeared in low orbit, even Miriam knew the truth. The purge was not gone. They were preparing. Slowly, carefully, the Aegis Council gathered in secret. Scientists, generals, and the 3 surviving Varan sat around a circular table lit by a single ring of light. Tahran, the oldest Varan, spoke first. "You can still hide. If you bury all technology, silence your skies, they might grow bored and leave." Miriam shook her head. "We've hidden long enough. They'll never stop. They burned your worlds. They'll burn ours the moment we look away." "So what will you do?" asked Luray softly. "Stand," Miriam said. The word hung in the air like thunder, and so began Operation Iron Veil, humanity's greatest secret project. From every corner of the world came volunteers, scientists, pilots, builders, hackers, dreamers. Nations stopped competing. They started combining. The Aegis cloak remained in place, but beneath it, a storm was building. The Varan helped, reluctantly at first, then with growing passion. They taught humans how to manipulate energy through resonance, how to bend gravity into invisible walls, how to hide heat behind layers of folded light. Human engineers added something new, brutal, creative, unpredictable. The combination became something neither species had ever seen before. They built ships not of metal, but of woven plasma and carbon crystal. They moved without fuel, without sound. They didn't shine. They shimmered, like ghosts under the stars. They named the fleet Sentinel Breakers, a tribute to the eye that still watched them from above. During a rare moment of rest, Miriam found Luray in the hangar, tracing their fingers along the hull of the first completed ship. "You've built a weapon," Luray said softly. "No," Miriam replied. "We've built a message." Luray tilted their head. "A message?" "That we don't kneel." The Varan looked at her for a long moment. "You humans are strange. You protect others even when it costs you everything," Miriam smiled faintly. "That's what makes us human. When the first test flight launched, the world above never saw it. The ship rose through layers of cloud, completely invisible to radar. The only sign of its passage was a brief flicker of aurora over the South Pole. For a moment, Earth touched the stars without being seen. Then the ship vanished. 4 days later, the Sentinel in orbit moved. Its black surface rippled as if waking from a long sleep. A single beam of dark light pulsed toward deep space. A call. "They're summoning reinforcements," an analyst said. Miriam looked to her team. "Then we hit first." The breaker fleet rose into the night like ghosts. 20 silent ships crewed by men and women who knew they might never return. Luray and Taran watched from the control room, their glowing faces unreadable. "They cannot win," Taran whispered. Luray shook their head. "No, but they can show the stars what it means to try." In orbit, the first purge drones descended, sleek black arrows cutting through the dark. They didn't expect resistance. They expected silence. Instead, the void lit up. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, shimmering from cloak to fire. Plasma shields bloomed like sunrise. Lasers crossed the emptiness in silent brilliance. The Sentinels' drones returned fire, but the human ships moved unpredictably, turning gravity into weapons, folding light into blades. It wasn't about strength. It was about creativity. Humanity's chaos against the Purge's perfection. One by one, the black drones fell, then the Sentinel itself cracked. Its hull split like glass, spilling dark energy into the vacuum. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Purge creation died. On Earth, when the feed returned, the control room erupted into cheers. Miriam stood silently, watching the stars flicker back to calm. "They'll come for us now," she said quietly. Luray nodded. "Yes, but now the galaxy will know something they've forgotten." "What's that?" Miriam asked. "That humanity doesn't hide its heart. It fights for it." For a brief shining moment, the hidden world of Earth stood tall. And somewhere in the endless dark, other species, silent and terrified for centuries, heard whispers of a rumor spreading across the stars. Small blue planet that defied the Purge, a people who would rather burn than bow, and from that moment, the galaxy began to change. It began to change. The news spread faster than light could travel. Somewhere in the void, a Purge sentinel, thought to be eternal, had fallen. Destroyed. By humans. The story rippled through the hidden channels of the galaxy, whispered among refugee colonies, smuggler routes, and enslaved outposts. It was spoken like a miracle. "They did it," someone said in a dark tavern orbiting a dying star. "They killed a Purge." For the first time in centuries, fear didn't spread. Hope did. Meanwhile, Earth stayed quiet, hidden beneath its shimmering cloak. The planet was alive with secret movement. Ships were built in caverns, weapons tested under oceans, satellites launched with no record. Humanity had stepped into myth, and myths had power. But the galaxy's rulers, the Galactic Authority, were not pleased. To them, Earth's defiance was dangerous. The Purge fleets were their tool, their enforcers. If a primitive species could defy them, the authorities' order would crumble. So they sent emissaries, cold, shining beings of metal and light, to demand an explanation. The first encounter happened in orbit around Mars. A single Aegis cruiser, the Dawn's Edge, intercepted the alien envoy. The emissaries didn't threaten. They didn't shout. They simply transmitted one command: "Stand down. Reveal the fugitives. Return to silence." Captain Nyla Ortiz, the ship's commander, stared at the shimmering projection on her screen. "We don't answer to ghosts," she said calmly. The alien's form flickered. "You misunderstand." "You do not answer, you obey," the captain smiled. "Then you definitely don't know humans." She cut the transmission. Seconds later, her crew activated a new kind of defense, one born from both human and Varan ingenuity. A burst of radiant energy pulsed outward, folding space itself. The emissary's ship blinked out of view, not destroyed but banished, warped into nowhere. The galaxy felt the echo. Within weeks, other civilizations began to act. The Kareth, a species long enslaved by the Purge, rose in rebellion. The Durrell, who had lived hidden beneath the ice of distant moons, sent messages to Earth. And across hundreds of systems, beings who had once believed resistance was suicide began to whisper a single name: humanity. They didn't know what humans looked like. Some said they were giants made of fire. Others said they were ghosts, invisible, living on a hidden world no one could find. The truth didn't matter. The legend did. Back on Earth, General Miriam Holt stood in the underground garden dome, watching blue light shimmer through crystal leaves. Beside her, Luray moved silently, their translucent skin glowing faintly. "They're calling us heroes now," Miriam said softly. "But we're still hiding." Luray tilted their head. "You're hiding to protect, not to escape." "That's different," Miriam sighed. "If the Authority and the Purge come together, no amount of hiding will save us." Luray turned toward her. "Then stop hiding," she frowned. "What do you mean?" "Make them look at you," Luray said. "Make them see what humanity is. The Purge believes power is domination. The Authority believes peace comes from fear. Show them both they are wrong." Miriam was silent for a long time. Then she said, "How?" Luray smiled faintly. "You already did. You chose to save strangers. That's something neither of them understands." A month later, the world changed again. An enormous holographic broadcast appeared in the skies of hundreds of colonies across the galaxy. A human woman, General Holt herself, stood before the camera, the Earth's curved horizon behind her. Her message was simple. "This is Earth. We are not an empire. We are not your enemy. We found refugees and gave them safety. We will do the same for any who flee the Purge or the chains of the Authority. If you come here seeking peace, we will shield you. If you come here seeking war, remember, we already killed your gods." Then the signal ended. It was the most defiant message the galaxy had heard in millennia. For the Galactic Authority, it was an outrage. For the oppressed, it was a promise. New ships began to arrive at the edge of the solar system, quiet vessels bearing refugees from dozens of species. Some brought gifts, others brought stories, and all brought one shared dream, that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could change, and Earth, the once forgotten blue world, became something greater than anyone had imagined. A sanctuary. But peace, even noble peace, had a cost. As humanity reached out to protect others, the Purge began to awaken again. Their fleets, damaged but not destroyed, gathered in distant sectors. They rebuilt. They evolved. The galaxy trembled once more. Luray saw the signs before anyone else. "They've learned from us," they said. "They've adapted." Miriam stared at the data projection, a swarm of signatures moving across the stars, heading toward the hidden sector that held Earth. "Then they're coming again," she said. Luray nodded. "And this time, they'll bring everything." Miriam stood in silence, watching the holographic map pulse with incoming signals. Then she smiled. "Then we'll show them everything, too." She turned toward the command center. "Tell every ship, every ally, every refugee we've saved. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're defending everyone." And as the lights dimmed and the alarms began to sound, the voice of humanity echoed once more through the stars, calm, defiant, unbroken. "You wanted silence. Instead, you woke a world that remembers every voice it ever saved. The sky above Earth shimmered again, but this time it wasn't a storm or a fleet. It was a calling. The galaxy had changed. The hidden world had become a beacon. From the dark edges of space, ships of every shape and color arrived in quiet formation. They came in secret first, broken vessels, refugee transports, shattered warships seeking peace. Then came the brave ones, nations of alien worlds who had cast off their fear. They all gathered in orbit around a planet the Purge had once overlooked. Earth. The once hidden blue world glowed brighter than ever, wrapped not in stealth but in purpose. The Aegis cloak still hummed, but now it flickered open, allowing the galaxy to finally see. At the heart of the fleet stood the Aegis Ark, Earth's first diplomatic starship, a fusion of human steel and Varan crystal. It pulsed with soft light, alive with both technology and hope. Inside, General Miriam Holt stood on the command deck, her hair streaked with silver now, but her eyes sharp as ever. "Status?" she asked. "All fleets in position," replied Captain Nayla Ortiz, once the captain of the Dawn's Edge. "The signal's ready." Miriam nodded. "Then let's begin." A voice echoed across the void, broadcast through channels the Purge once used to command fear. Now it carried something else. To every world that hears this, we are the children of Earth. We once hid from the dark. Now we shine. The purge is coming, but they will not find victims here. They will find family. The signal spread like wildfire. On distant moons, slaves lifted their heads. On dying planets, refugees began to build again. The message reached systems long silent and sparked revolutions without a single bullet fired. Humanity's voice had become the pulse of resistance. But in the cold between stars, something vast stirred. The purge fleets had returned. Not a dozen ships, not 100, thousands. They darkened the edge of the solar system like an eclipse made of metal and hunger. Their leader, a being called the Null Sovereign, spoke once, a voice like static tearing through reality. You were offered silence. You chose defiance. You are infection. You will be erased. The transmission reached Earth's command deck. Miriam stared at the screen. No, she said quietly. We're the cure. The battle that followed would be remembered for 10,000 years. When the purge entered the solar system, they found not one planet, but an entire shielded armada waiting. Ships of Earth and Varen, Durell, and Kareth stood side by side. The first wave hit Mars' orbit, and the stars themselves seemed to ignite. The purge fought with precision, with logic, with cold perfection. Humanity fought with chaos, with emotion, creativity, and fire. Every strategy the purge used, humans broke by doing what no machine could predict, the unexpected. When gravity wells collapsed, humans turned debris into weapons. When the purge jammed communication, humans used music, coded rhythms through ship hulls, to guide their fleets. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more appeared from cloaked spaceports on the moon or beneath the seas, and above them all, the Aegis Ark shone like a heartbeat in the dark. In the middle of the battle, Lure and Tahran stood on the Ark's bridge beside Miriam. They'll never stop, Tahran said. They'll erase us both. Then we erase their fear, Miriam replied. How? She turned toward the Varen scientist, eyes fierce. By giving them something they can't comprehend. They activated the Varen core, a crystal sphere connected to Earth's magnetic field. It wasn't a weapon. It was truth. When the Ark's core pulsed, every human and Varen mind connected for a single heartbeat. Then the signal spread to every ship, every being in the Allied fleet. Thoughts merged. Emotions flowed. Fear turned into unity. Across the void, millions of hearts began to beat as one. The fleet moved as a single living organism, guided not by command, but by compassion. When the final purge wave struck, it met something it could not calculate. Love. Light engulfed the solar system, and when it cleared, the purge was gone. Not destroyed, not dead, changed. Their ships drifted, their weapons silent. The Null Sovereign's voice whispered once more, You are impossible. Then it vanished into the void. Years passed. The galaxy slowly healed. Earth became more than a planet. It became a symbol. A meeting place. A protectorate. A myth made real. The Varen rebuilt their culture under Earth's blue skies. Their children spoke human languages and told stories of the day humanity saved the galaxy not by conquest, but by compassion. General Miriam Holt lived to see peace, though she never called it victory. She called it duty. In her final address, she said, We are not gods. We are not conquerors. We are the species that chose to protect strangers. And that choice, more than any weapon, changed the stars. Centuries later, when travelers from distant worlds came to Earth, they would visit the Monument of Light in what was once Antarctica. There, beneath a transparent dome, burned a single eternal flame. A plaque beside it bore simple words written in a dozen alien tongues. Here stood humanity. They saw fear and answered with mercy. They saw darkness and became light. And far above, in the endless quiet of space, a single blue world still turned, small, fragile, shining, guarded by those who had once been refugees, and the descendants of those who refused to let them die. The galaxy called them saviors, but among themselves they had a simpler name, human.